Welcome back to the Tavern Between Dimensions, a monthly tabletop RPG podcast. We're actually going to be doing things a little bit different today, as normally this would be BYOB, but instead we're going to go to the other side of the table and see how things affect the players in the players' round. So you've just joined a cult, as Azorius tends to do, and this young sorcerer has been inspired by these warlocks and decides, I should probably take a level in that.
Mm-hmm.
What we're talking about today is build decisions and how you come across the things that you do to build your character, whether it be min-maxing or some RP decision that has made you take that extra level.
I mean, there are a lot of ways a lot of methods to build your character. However, there is only one correct one, and I will fight you all on it.
Oh,
Okay,
it's on.
Let's go.
It's on.
Let's get ready.
Well, actually, I mean, I've thrown down the gauntlet, but I think Anton should go first.
Okay, I can. Now, I know the segment is meant to be RP and how that affects character builds. The thing is, I never let RP affect my character build.
No, it's because you're a min-maxer, aren't you?
Well, debatable. But yeah, I kind of know what my build is going to be. I feel like the build choices come from me as a player and not from the character's actions, because I know where the character's going to go. And I feel like if I take a level in Rogue, it doesn't necessarily mean that suddenly I'm a stealthy character and shady and I'm going to start pickpocketing everyone. It's just because I want the character to get those skills that the Rogue gets, Or even, maybe Paladin might be different, but same with Cleric. Like my War Wizard, Magnus, I don't consider him being a cleric. He was just, for example, raised in by the church, and that's why he has a level in cleric. I don't consider the character to be a cleric, for example.
I think so. Back during the Prince of the Apocalypse campaign, where you were playing Julian, like one of the other players, Jake, he had a character called Memon, and Memon just ended up being this kind of grab bag of various different classes. And like, I remember there being a point where, as a DM, I sat there and thought, what even is Memon? Like, what is Memon? I thought he's a ranger, but like, he's doing all the damage and he's doing all the healing and he never dies. And like, what is this?
He had
and
a level in cleric and a level in rogue.
Level in cleric, level in rogue.
Yeah.
But yeah, he just but he was kind of reaching out and thinking, what is it? He was cherry picking the bits that he needed from those various classes and not looking at the class names, I guess, right?
Yeah.
And that's where I prefer to do as well.
Yeah, I'm so normally this is the case. I'll have a build and stick to it, but sometimes for me there will be choices made in the game where I sit there. It's I kind of have to go down that route because for instance, I think Group was one of the examples. Again, 4th edition, so it's slightly different, but he overcome everything. He'd become the leader of his people and become more spiritual. So Shaman, even though it didn't really work with Barbarian, was a choice that I nearly went for because it was like, this just kind of makes the most sense for where my character's gone. It would have completely destroyed the Barbarian build, but it was the right choice. I didn't go that way in the end, but for a long time I was debating it with Dan, like, should I go Shaman? Do you think Shaman's a good choice? I mean, this is what my character would do. And I've definitely had a few characters where their life goal or the things that have happened to them in their life has been what dictated where I sort of sit in the character and maybe end up multi-classing. Maybe if Magda stuck around and pushed Katja down sort of more the certain path, she may have taken some cleric because she would have been inspired by Magnus. That would have definitely been a choice I could have made.
Interesting. Okay. Julie, what about you?
I tend to pick a class that I really want to play and stick with it, usually. And then I generally just kind of I don't pre-plan builds. I find the bring your own build stuff that you do utterly befuddling. I'm like, how do you fit it all together like this? How do you kind of see the connections and the ways that it all works together? That's not how my brain works. I look at a class and I go, that's cool. That's got the flavor I want for this character. I build a character around it, and then I might take a dip into something else. my druid that I started Curse of Strahd out with, he had a level dip into Life Cleric because I paired that with Circle of the Shepherd, didn't I? Because I wanted him to be quite an effective healer. Much good it did him, but still.
I remember you having that kind of light bulb moment when you said, "Oh, I'd really like to be the kind of the healer, the fatherly figure of the group," and I was like, "Well, just grab Life Cleric level, like 1 level in Life Cleric, get your bonus all your heals and 4 hit point good berries and blah, blah, blah."
Yeah,
And
it's
there was that
amazing.
kind of ooh.
Yeah, so I'll do a tiny bit of that kind of build planning and the like, but in general, I'm much more, this is the class that makes sense for the character I want to play. My current character in Curse of Strahd is a sorcerer, a psionic sorcerer, so the Aberrant Mind subclass.
Yeah.
And we just got to level, I think it's 7, and I went, I'm taking a level in Warlock. She's a spooky lady. This will be good. This will be good flavor, and it'll give me a load more spells. Brilliant. So yeah, I just did it because I felt like it. I'm not terribly strategic in my build decisions. I do what feels right for the character and what will make the game more interesting to play.
Well, as a curveball then, because we talk about taking classes through choices and things, but have you ever taken a feat because the role players dictated it? Have you ever been pushed down a certain feat? Because I know Matt talked about this in EOE, that he was strongly considering taking Mounted Combatant.
Oh, yes.
Because of the amount of times he's ridden on Drill's back. And that would purely be a role play choice for him. And, but that was kind of actually what inspired me to bring this topic to the table. After hearing Matt mention that, I was like, how many times has a particular feat been chosen? Like, I think I have a monk in a converted Rune Lords game into 5th edition, and we've gone to a couple of fights where the lights have been put out, and it's getting to the point my monk is slowly trying to learn how to fight without seeing, because I'm gearing myself up ready to take blind fighting, because I want the narrative to dictate the choice I make. So have you lot ever had the same sort of thing where a particular feat has been taken because it works in role play? Start with you, Anton.
Quick answer from me: no. No, I don't. I don't play around with feats. I don't play around the class to determine what my character is going to do. The way I do it through role play. That's generally how I mark out character changes, character transitions, and the way they act and the way they interact with the world. That's usually the way I do it. I don't do it via class. I don't do it by feats. I don't do it mechanically. I do it RP-wise. So we give an example. Last Tavern Between Dimensions was... Oh, no, it wasn't. It was the Meet the Players from Explosive Elsewhere. Balthazar...
Hey, franchises, right, Anton?
Sorry, we're just doing too many things. We're just out there. But my Arcana Cleric, basically, as they regained their memory, they started using more and more powerful spells. So I started out using cantrips and being afraid of combat, and now we're moving into the high-level spells, and he's gaining more confidence. And that's how I would play out change, not necessarily class feats.
Okay.
What about you guys?
See, but for me, when I design a character, all of my characters are designed on like a meta level. So I'll take a concept and try to kind of faithfully recreate that as best I can. So referring to the Curse of Strahd game, after my paladin died and I swapped out to a bard, but I wanted Etelina to be a dancer because I play far too much Final Fantasy XIV and I was playing the dancer class. So I kind of sat there and effectively just did this brainstorm of like, how do I take this concept I have in my head of like a bard that's basically a little bit away, dances lots, is buffing and supporting, but also specializes in thrown weapons. Like, how can I make that a good build using the existing rules? Whatever kind of comes out of it is whatever kind of comes out of it. And a lot of that came from because I grew up playing 4th edition, and when Player Handbook 3 came out and it introduced hybrid classes, that was a miracle moment for me, because I was like, oh, all of these strange ideas that don't fit in the lines of the predetermined classes that Wizards have presented us. Cool, I've now got all these character ideas that I can throw out. I mean, forever DM, they're all going in the vault. But I brought that over to 5th. To answer your question then, no.
There you go.
Because again,
Dip pinch.
a lot of the time, so with Etelina, I thought, well, she's going to be thrown weapon, so I need to somehow figure out how to get the thrown weapon fighting style from the fighter which came out in Tatches. But I should also probably pair that with sharpshooter. But actually, there's that clause in sharpshooter that means I can't use these kind of particular weapons, so I've got to pick darts instead of daggers. Okay, and then how does that affect? Okay, so I need that feat to, and so the whole thing becomes quite cohesive mechanically and thematically. For me, most importantly, it's cohesive thematically, but there's also relatively little wiggle room.
Yeah, I'm there with you. Yeah, that's where I find.
Julia, please. Help me.
Sorry, I've considered it. I've heavily considered it a few times, and I know what you mean. Like when your character's been, well, the more you play a character, the more you get to know them, right? And so, yeah, you might know things about your character or have decided things about your character at level 4 or 8 that you didn't know at level 1, and so those are good opportunities to kind of, rather than just taking a linear bump in a stat, you might want to kind of do what Dan calls a horizontal kind of expansion out into sort of enriching your skills and your character build. So I've definitely thought about it with previous characters, like in our first ever campaign, which was a Princess of the Apocalypse with the group that Anton and I started out in. I had a bard who was a bit of a menace with a crossbow because it was my first character. I hadn't built bard in a particularly min-maxy way. Her dexterity was only, I think, +2. So she wasn't that good with the crossbow, and the joke was always that if Althea gets a crossbow out, everybody hits the deck.
You had a spell, but you had a spell though afterwards. That
no, that was later. But what I considered doing was taking something. I think it was something like crossbow expert or something like that to kind of almost make up for how shit she was with the crossbow. But I didn't in the end. No, you're talking about conjure volley, which I deliberately took at whatever level it was, 5th level, whenever it was that spell unlocked. Yeah. So it meant that all she had to do was fire up into the air, and then hundreds of crossbow bolts would come down in an area over the enemy. So that was a good way of
spell choice based off of
I made a spell choice.
Yeah.
Exactly, precisely. There you go. Yeah. What about you, Carl? We haven't heard about how you create your character builds.
Well, I mean, normally I'm quite like you. I'm straight laced. I pick the class that I really want to go down. I usually go Barbarian. I love Barbarian. There's no secret. It's been mentioned multiple times. With obviously EOE, there was a particular idea I had in mind because I had a very sort of vivid dream, and then I was like, I wanted to try and create the character I saw in that dream. You know, in the Ravnica game, you know, John, which was introduced a couple of BYOBs ago, it was a particular way I wanted to play it. But after that, once I have like the base down, yeah, certain things will usually dictate where I go. Like most of it, the roleplay choices, like the new abilities I've chosen for Katya are purely because in the roleplay they've made sense of why I've picked them. They may not be necessarily good, they may not be necessarily useful, but it furthers that idea I have in my head for the roleplay I want to do with the character. If it's a barbarian, it's probably going to be things that just make them scarier and bigger and angrier and hit harder and that lot. But Katya's, again, has been a very different character for me. So a lot of my choices, especially with her spells, have been because of certain things that have happened that I want to do. Particularly her feat choice, I chose telepathic. No other reason. Doesn't give me any real benefits, but
it fits her.
It fit her in what was happening at the time. She was becoming more insular, so she was trying to project herself more, you know, through the minds of people without having to speak. So for me, normally I'm quite straight-laced, but it depends on the DM, depends on the game.
So, I mean, talking about the feats and talking about the DM, I think something Julia said was that I see feats as horizontal, like side grades.
Okay.
And I love progression like that. The progressions that give your players more choice instead of just more success rates. And I actually really like the idea of handing out, for example, feats as like magic items, quote unquote. Because that, you know, arguably it's a measured reward. Because it's a feat, it can be really character defining, and you know, especially, you know, for example, Matt with Zumbo in the mounted combatant feat, Now we're mentioning it, I might actually just drop it on his character sheet, just so it opens up that kind of roleplay opportunity. I guess a portion of your character build is going to come from the game itself, right? Like the DM's going to be part of that. I think it's not great to make your build decisions based on magic items you expect your DM will give you later on in the game.
Terrible.
Yeah.
That's usually, in my book, that's a recipe for disappointment.
Yeah. I'm there with you.
Yeah, there's been a few times where I've had players that have tried to pull fast ones because they've been given specific magic items and they've kind of gone, oh, well, I don't need to do this and this anymore. It's just like, come on, man. Like, and that's also why I think magic items are best when they are side grade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get with you. If we can increase the range of things a character can do, then that's better than just improving what they currently do.
What do we do if we get to a point and we realise a build just isn't fun? I suppose we can always refer to the retiring the character.
I was just about to say that we
but
either refer to the retiring character episode or we refer to the previous episode where we can get them killed off.
Isn't there a third option though? So we've had it in. This was a bit of a behind the camera thing because it happened before the YouTube series started. But I'm thinking about Tilda with Hiram. Tilda actually completely changed class between levels.
Oh yes, because she was a fighter to start with, wasn't she?
She started as a fighter, and then at some point
Hiram started
as a fighter, and then Tilda decided, actually, for whatever reason, there were various reasons, that actually he would fit Paladin a lot better, and that it would be more fun for her going forward. And so she came and had a chat with you about it.
Yeah. So the secret behind that is that Tilda approached me saying, "Hey, like, based off everything that's been happening in the Cormier campaign, I think Hiram, who at that point was like, it would have been stepping into level 7, I think. Level 8, stepping into level 8. Yeah, Tilda was saying, for level 8, I'm actually going to take Paladin 1. So I'm going to be a Fighter 7 Paladin 1. And like I sat down and I spoke to her about it and asked her what her thought process was behind it. And she was saying, everything that was happening with the crown and Cormier at large and what happened to Emily and blah, 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 blah. Gave me all these reasons. And I realized that she just wanted kind of the divine energy. And specifically in that situation, I was just like, mechanically, Fighter 7 Paladin 1 gains nothing.
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing. But when I realized, you want to be a fighter with holy magic, well, cool, that's basically a Paladin, right? So I just wholesale swapped her class.
Yeah.
We talked it through with her. It's just like, you're gonna miss out on a third attack at level 11, but at least you get smites now.
So that is always an option. If you're not enjoying your character, respec, like, talk it through with your DM and come to an agreement if that's something they're up for.
Yeah, no, that's a good show.
Yeah.
Didn't include that in our last episode, Dan.
We're all fallible.
So no matter what you choose, whether you make your decisions through RP choices or whether you have it planned out from the start, I hope this maybe gives you a little idea of how at least we do it. But if you do it any other way, maybe leave a comment down below and let us know. Speaking of which, also make sure you like and subscribe. But with that, I think we should move on. Thanks for watching. We release segments like this from the Tavern Between Dimensions every Friday here on the Explorers of Elsewhere channel. Otherwise, if you want to listen to the episode in full, you can check us out on Spotify and Amazon Music.